Okay, so last time I think we've ended in this question. So we finished this one, and now we're moving on to this question. And yeah, we will try to finish the BEC Mathematics 2025 exam today. Um, so here is the next question. So let's read the question together. A boy walked around a circular pond once. If the radius of the pond is 28 meter, find the distance covered. So a hint is that we know the distance covered is 2 pi r. That's called the circumference. And that is the distance covered. Um, and can you calculate what 2 pi r is? If we take pi to be 22 over 7. So I was saying that the distance covered is 2 pi r, and 2 pi r is the formula for the circumference, what's called the circumference. And do you know what a circumference is of a circle? This part. That is the outside length of the circle. So when we want to find the boy's distance that he walked across the pond, then we're finding the circumference. And can you solve for 2 pi r when pi is 22 over 7? Then it is 2 times 22 over 7 times 28, which is 176 meters. Yeah, does this make sense to everyone? Yeah, so I hope this question makes sense. And since it is 176, that's why the answer is C for this one. So always remember that when we're talking about going around a circular pond, then we are referring to the circumference. And what is the formula for the circumference? It is 2 pi r. 2 pi r. Yeah. And then you can find and plug in the values. Radius r was given to be 28. That's why we get the 28 here. Can you see this? Radius is 28. And then it's just 2. And then pi comes from here, 22 over 7. And then we multiply those values together. And then we get the circumference, which is 176. Okay, let me move on. Oh, one more thing. You can also calculate the circumference by pi d, and d is the diameter. Diameter is how much one point of the circle to another point of the circle by crossing this middle. That's the length is called the diameter. And the radius is simply from the midpoint of the circle to a point of a circle. That's the radius. But since this is 2 pi r, it's the same as pi d. It's 2 pi is the same as d. Okay, if you don't have any questions, we can move on to this question. So can you solve for x when it is 2 to the power of x equals 8 times 2 to the power of 0? What do you think the answer is if you know it? Yeah, did you say B or D? Oh, yeah, did you say A? Yeah. If you said A, then yeah, that's correct. Yeah, great job. Here is the explanation. So when you're multiplying um two numbers that have the same base and have different powers, you can add these two numbers together. So for example, a to the power of 3 times a to the power of 2 equals a to the power of 5. You add 3 plus 2 to the top. Here we have 2 to the power of x equals 8 times 2 to the power of 0. 8 can be written as 2 times 2 times 2. And we know that's 2 to the power of 3. And we know 2 to the power of x equals 2 to the power of 3 times 2 to the power of 0. And 3 plus 0 equals 3. That's why the answer is 3. Does this make sense to everyone? Do you have any questions about this? Yeah, I'll take sometimes some time to let you write this down, but yeah, let me ask you one more question. So, for example, if we had 16, number 16 equals 2 to the x, what do you think this x would be in this case? Oh, yeah, nice. Great job. It would be 4 because 16 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. is 2 to the power 4. Yeah, that's how multiplication, um, expansion, and combination works. And I have summarized the rules and some examples for these. So the rule that we just did, this one, if you look at the very top, a to the power of m plus times a to the power of n equals a to the power of m plus n. And the second rule, what if we divide a to the power of m divided by a to the power of n equals a to the power of m minus n. It is minus if you divide. If you multiply, if you take the power of m to the power of n again, then you have the power to m times n. And these three are, yeah, very important. These three are very important. And it'll be very useful when you're calculating equations or solving certain equations, they will try to ask you this. And other rules is that just a to the power of 1 equals a, just by itself, and a to the power of 0 equals 1. It doesn't matter what a is. A to the power of 0 is always 1. And if you take power of m to this whole fraction, then you take both the numerator and the denominator to the power of m. And then if you have a negative power, then it is the reciprocal, meaning that you take 1 over a to the power of m. And the last rule is that when you have a fraction, just in case, if you have a fraction as your power, what do you do? Then what's on the numerator gets to the power, and whatever's in the denominator gets in the square root, or not the square root, but how many roots that you should take. So for example, we have 49 to the power of 1/2. What do you do? It is 49 to the power of 1 and then taking the root of 2, or the square root. 49 to the power of 1 over 2 is square root of 49 to the power of 1, which is 7. That is just one example. And here are some other examples that we've seen. And does this make sense to everyone? Um, yes. Oh, yeah, I'll let you write this down. And please, yeah, tell me when you're ready. Yeah, is it okay to move on now, or are you still writing? Um, okay. Yeah, let's move on to the next question then. So, a survey shows that 28% of the men in a village are vegetarian. What is the probability that a man selected at random from the village is a vegetarian? And I want you to think about this. And if you still don't know how to solve this, you can look at the bottom hint. Yeah, so if you've maybe read through this hint or if you've yeah, the answer is A for this one because the probability, it says to find the probability. And we're given that 28% of the men in the village are vegetarian. So we know 28 out of 100 is just this fraction here, 28 out of 100. But 28 out of 100 is not in the option. So we just have to simplify the fraction. And we can do that by dividing by 4 on both the numerator and the denominator. So we divide by 4, divide by 4, and what do we get? We get 7 over 25. That's why the answer is A. So for this question, all you have to do is know that probability means 28 out of 100 because of this 28%. And then we simplify the fraction, and then we get the answer. Okay. I hope this makes sense. And this was a rather simple one. So let's move on to the next question. Yeah, the answer is A. Yeah, let's look at this question. A trader receives a commission of 5% on goods sold at how much? 25,000 Ghana cedis. It says to find the commission. Yeah, did you say A or yeah, please, if you have time, please try to yeah, solve this through. Yeah, if you said A, then that's correct. Yeah, good job. Yeah, as you might know, just 5% is taking multiplying by 5 over 100. That's 5%. And percent always means just over 100. And then commission is 5% of 25,000. And what is that? It's 25,000 times 5 over 100. And then we can cancel out the 100, right? Cancel out two zeros, X out two zeros. And then it's just 250 times 5. 250 times 5 is 1,250 Ghana cedis. Yeah, that's why the answer is A. And this is a similar, I guess, similar problem in a sense from the previous question because we're dealing with percentages. And yeah, I think you guys seem to be good at calculating percentages, which is great. Uh, yeah, I'll be moving on to the next question. Okay, let's try this one. Which of the following inequalities is represented on the number line? Do you think this one is? Yeah. Did you say B? Yeah. If you said B, then yeah, that's correct. Yeah, good job. Yeah, nice job in noticing that. Here, we see a closed circle. And if it's a closed circle, we know that it is equal to, less than or greater than or equal to. And then we see that this points to the left from 3. So it has to be less than 3. And since it is closed, 3 is inclusive. We include 3. So x is less than or equal to 3. Yeah. If it is not closed, let's say if the circle was open, if we had an open circle going this way, then that would just be x is less than 3, not less than or equal to. Okay, let's look at more examples coming up. Let's look at more examples. So in this case, we have like a two-way inequality. We can see that x is between 2 and 6. And it is closed. Can you see that this is a filled closed circle? This is a filled dot. Yeah, that's why it's from 2 to 6, but it's less than or equal to. So x is greater than or equal to 2, but less than or equal to 6. That is all the values between here, with 2 and 6 included. The next example is when we have in an open circle on the right, this blank circle, then we just changed this inequality to just less than 6. Yeah. And then similarly, we can set this to be blank circle, and we can set x is just greater than 2. And then we can have both blank circles, and then the equal to just disappears. It's just that x is greater than 2, less than 6. Yeah, I hope this makes sense for everyone. Um, yeah. Okay, then let's move on to the next question. It costs a carpenter 25 Ghana cedis to make a chair. How much should be sold to make a profit of 40%? Yeah, let's try to solve this together. Um, yeah, it says to make a profit of 40%. That is, we need to make 40% more than 25. So what is 25 times 40%? It says 40%, 40 over 100. So that's the same as, we can take zeros out. 4 over 10. And then we can simplify further. Divide by 2 again. 2 over 5. Yeah, then that becomes, if we simplify 5, is equals 10, right? Yeah, so 40% of 25 is 10 cities. And we are making a profit of $10 after spending 25 to make a chair. So how much should be sold? It's 25 plus 10, right? Plus 10 Ghana cedis equals 35. Yes, 35. That's why the answer is B for this question. 35. Okay, yeah, you got it. Yeah, nice. Okay, so yeah, here's just the explanation of what I just did. 40% of 25 is 10 cedis, and then the selling price should be cost price plus the profit. 25 plus 10, which is 30. Okay, if you've maybe finished writing down, we can move on to the next question, if you're ready. Okay. All right, let's try to solve this question together. Okay. The area of a rectangular card is 15 centimeters. if each side of the card is enlarged by the scale factor of 3, find the area of the enlarged card. Do you think it's A? Um, yeah, it's actually not A. Although you might think it's A because 15 times 3 is 45, but we are dealing with a area of a rectangle. So originally, how do you find the area of the rectangle? It is A times B, right? Yeah. And if yeah, if each side is multiplied by 3, we get 3A times 3B. Yeah, it's D. Yeah. Yeah, it's D. Because it is 9 times A times B, and A times B was 15. 15 times 9, so 15 times 9 equals 135 centimeter squared. Yeah, that's why the answer is D. So, so if the scale factor is 3 of each side, then it is 3A times 3B, which is 9AB. Okay. Yeah, let's move on to the next question. Oh, okay. So Alma is 3 times as old as Coffee. The sum of their ages is 40. How old is Alma? Yeah, I'm hearing maybe B or D. Um, but yeah, if you said B, then that is correct. But let's look at the process real quick. So we know that Alma's age is 3 times as old as Coffee. So we can set Coffee's age as X. Then Alma's age is 3X, 3 times X. Then we add their ages. So X plus 3 times X, which is 4X. And 4X equals 40 because the sum of their ages is 40. Now solve for X. 4X equals 40. Divide by 4 on both sides. And we get X equals 10. But that is Coffee's age. X equals 10 is Coffee's age. What was Alma's age? 3 times Coffee's age. 3 times 10 equals 30. That's why Alma's age is 30 years old. Yeah, does this make sense to everyone? Yes, okay, yeah. It's really glad to hear. We set just one variable to x. We set Kofi's age to x, and then, yeah, we can calculate the rest from there. Alma's age, 3x. We add these together, and that should be 40, combined age. And then we find Kofi's age first, and then we find Alma's age. Okay. If this is clear, we can move on to the next question, but always feel free to ask me more questions if you have. But let's look at this question 19. Yeah, expand and simplify this term here. Yeah, does everyone agree it is B? What do you think? B. Yeah, if you said B, yeah, that's correct. Great job. So, yeah, this is just a problem of adding like terms and distributing multiplications. So, yeah, I think you guys have learned this before. So, 2 times, yeah, great. 3a plus 1 is 2 times 3a plus 2 times 1, which is 6a plus 2. And then we have the next term, negative 3 times 4a minus 3. Then we get negative 3 times 4a plus negative 3 times negative 3. Since there are two negatives, this becomes positive. Yeah, this is important. So that's why we have negative 12a plus 9, not minus 9. And then we add these together. 6a plus 2 minus 12a plus 9. And then we add like terms. We link these together. That's why it is 6a minus 12a is negative 6a plus 9 plus 2, which is 11. That's why we get negative 6a plus 11, which is B. Yeah, so the key part of this problem was that negative 3 times negative 3 equals positive 9. Yeah, that's why we get this answer. Okay. Oh, sorry, can you repeat that, please? Oh, I can proceed. Okay. Yeah, thank you for letting me know. Okay. Yeah, so given that 0.03y equals 2.4, can you find the value of y for this? Do you think it's A for this question? Let's try it. So we know 0.03y equals 2.4, and we divide both sides, by 0.03. And that should equal to y, right? And how do we find 2.4 over 0.03? How do we find that? Well, we can multiply 100 on both sides, both the numerator and the denominator, and we get what is 240, right? Over 1, 2, 3. That should be y. So it's not A, and what do you think the answer is now?
Kevin, please wait for a minute so that we can talk.
Okay, yeah, I can wait a minute. Yeah.
The answer is D.
Yeah, great job. Yeah, the answer is D. Yeah, great job because yeah, we see that y is equal to 2.5, 2.4 over 0.03. That's the same as 240 divided by 3 because we can multiply 100 on both the numerator and the denominator. Yeah, and 240 divided by 3 equals 80. Right? 80. Yeah, that's why the answer is D. So, in an equation, if we multiply or divide both sides by the same non-zero number, the equation remains true. And in a fraction, always remember that if we multiply or divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number, so here it was 100, then the value of the fraction does not change. That's the key part about this question. Does this make sense to everyone? Yeah. Yeah, I can.
Kevin, please can you go over it again?
Yeah, I can go over this again. Yeah, if you want to. Yeah, let's try this again. So we have 0.03 times y equals 2.4. And do you get, do you understand why we divide 0.03 on both sides? So if we divide in an equation the same number on both sides, then the equation is same. So if we have 0.03 y equals 2.4, then if we divide 0.03 on both sides, then the equation is the same. We can divide by 2 or by 100 or by any number, and the equation remains the same if we divide by both sides. So we, yeah, have maybe another example. Let's say if we have 3a equals 6, for example, then we can divide 3 by both sides, and we get a equals 2. And it's the similar process here. We are just dividing by 0.03 on both sides. And then we can continue by multiplying 100 on both the numerator and the denominator. That's why we get 240 over 3. Now, does this make sense to everyone? I hope you guys understand. Yeah. Any questions about this? So if we have, like, let's say any equation, A equals B, then we can do anything on both sides. So we can multiply 2. So 2A equals 2B. We multiply 2 by both sides. Or that's the same. Or we can say 1 over 3A equals 1 over 3B. So we can multiply and divide on both sides, and the equation is still the same. What about addition? We can add 2. So A plus 3 equals B plus 3. we added 3 on both sides.
Oh, please keep quiet. Why?
What if we subtract A minus 3 equals B minus 3? What I'm saying here is that if you multiply, divide, or add or subtract on both sides of the equation, then the equation is still the same. Okay, so let's move on to this reasoning, why this is correct. So if we have B over A, this fraction equals 2B over 2A, or 3B over 3A, or even 100B over 100A. So if we multiply both the denominator, A, by the same number as the numerator, B, then the fraction remains the same. Yeah, so we here, that's why we multiplied by 100. And this makes it way simpler because we cannot divide by fractions mentally. So we have to use this property of fractions to get a whole number. So we get 240 over 3 by multiplying 100 on both 2.4 and 0.03. Yeah, does this make sense to you or?
Yes.
Hmm, yeah. Yeah, I'm very glad it's making sense and yeah, I will wait a little. Yeah, I can proceed. Okay, yeah, that's why the answer is T. Okay, let's move on to next question. Okay, it's number 21. Charles and Helen started a business with an amount of 7,000 cities. If their contributions were in the ratio 4 to 3, respectively, find Helen's contribution. Yeah, the answer is B. Let's look at the reasoning. Yeah, let's look at why it is B. So, yeah, I think you might have seen 3 over 7. You looked at this, right? Yeah. is 3 over 7 because Charles to Helen is 4 to 3. And Helen is taking 3 out of 7. Helen's portion is 3 out of 7. And if we want to find the amount of money, we multiply that by 7,000. And this should equal to 3,000. Yeah, this question was just about proportion. So, Charles is taking 4 out of the total 7. Helen is taking 3 out of the total 7. And since Helen's contribution is 3 over 7, 3 parts of 7, then we multiply by 7,000, we get 3,000. Yeah, does this make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Then we can move on. Yeah, this seems to be
Yes.
pretty easy. Yeah, okay. Okay, if you're finished writing, you don't have to write down all of this. Just remember that Helen is taking 3 out of 7. Okay, let's move on to the next question. A box contains 10 green and 8 white balls of the same size. If a ball is selected at random from the box, what is the probability that it is green?
B, B, B,
Yeah, did
B,
you answer B or C? Yeah.
B, B, B. Over 5. B.
Yeah, maybe it's B or D. I think I'm getting some mixed answers, but let's look at the question. So
B.
the answer is actually C for this question because we have 10 green balls and 8 white balls. The total number of balls is 18, 10 plus 8. And we have 10 greens from the box. Then it is 10 out of 18. So 10 divided by 18 is equal to 5 over 9. And again, we divide by 2 on both the numerator and the denominator. That's why the answer is C. Yeah, 5 over 9.
Baby.
Yeah, if this makes sense, yeah, I can move on. Um, okay. Yeah, let's solve for this equation. 4x minus 2 times this whole x plus 5 equals negative 10. What is x here?
It's B, zero. Zero.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it'll be 0, actually. Great job. Um, if you said 0, the answer is B. That's correct. Yeah, the explanation is that we have 4x minus 2 times x plus 5. We get 4x minus 2x minus 10, which is 2x minus 10. And if we add a 10 on both sides, we get 2x equals negative 10 plus 10, and that equals 0. 2x equals 0, so x equals 0, because dividing both sides by 2 is still 0. Yeah.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, great job in this question.
Thank you.
If it makes sense, yeah, we can move on. Hmm. Okay. Hmm. Let's look at question 24. A trader sold half of a piece of cloth and used 2/5 of the remaining cloth to sew the dress. What is the fraction of the cloth that was left out of the whole cloth?
B, 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 B.
Yeah, if you said B, then that is correct. Yeah, great job. Um, yeah, what remains is 3/5 of the half of the cloth. So if we just look at this half, then we used 2 of the 5, right? We used these two. And 3 of the 5 remains. But we're finding the fraction of the cloth from the whole cloth. Remember that we took half, so we multiply it by 1/2 times 3/5, just 3/10. And you can see it in this diagram too. We have 1, 2, 3 left out of the whole box, which is 10. So it is, yeah, 3 out of 10 is what? Okay. Yeah, does this make sense to everyone? Or,
Yes.
yeah, if you have questions, yeah, feel free to ask me. Um, But if you understand, then we can move on to the next question. Okay. If 2y equals 5 minus 3x, find x when y equals 1.
Answer is one. D. D.
Yeah, did you say D for this question?
D.
Yeah, if you said D, then that's correct. Yeah, great job. Yeah, yeah, you're really great at answering these algebraic questions. Yeah, nice job. Um, so we are given that y is equal to 1. So we plug in the value and we get 2 is equal to 5 minus 3x.
One here, one. One here, one.
Yeah.
One. Two times one. Eight. And two X.
So we subtract 5 on both sides and we get negative 3 equals negative 3x. Divide both sides by negative 3 and we get x is equal to 1. Yeah, I'll give you some time to, yeah, understand and write this down.
One. Come on.
Yeah, if this makes sense, then
Yes.
okay. Yeah, we can move on then. Okay. Essie made sales of 15 20 city notes and 14 10 city notes and 15 2 city notes. Find your total sales. Yes.
B. B. B.
Yeah,
What?
it's
Is
actually
one and
going to
forty
be
thousand.
C for this one.
40.
Okay. Yeah, let's look at it. Why? I think some parts of it just had to do with some um computational errors, so you have to watch out for that. But I think this is, yeah, how you solve it. Yeah. You can match it maybe with your notes, but
Also,
yeah,
yes. Yes, yeah. In fact, let's see that.
we add all these values together. So we have 15 20 cities, 15 times 20, which is 300 Ghana cities, 14 10 cities, so that is 14 times 10, which is 140, 15 2 cities notes. 15 times 2 is 30, and 300 plus 140 plus 30 is 470 Ghana cities.
Yes.
Yes, so that's why the answer is C.
Yes. Now
Okay.
see.
Okay. Yeah, I'll wait a little bit for yeah, the rest for everyone to understand. I can wait a little bit. Um, yeah.
Yeah, we can go sit. Yeah, we can go sit.
Okay. Yeah. I think someone else is still writing down. So can you wait for maybe 10 more seconds until everyone
Yeah, we
is
can ask.
yeah, or oh, everyone's
Maybe
done?
we are done.
Okay. If everyone's finished, then we can move on. So next question 27. A point -3, comma 3 is reflected in the x-axis. Find the image of the point. So this concept might be um new for some of you. But let me draw this point for you. -3, comma 3. Where is it?
It's
Negative
B.
2, comma.
B.
Did you say B, this
B.
one, or
B.
this one? If you said B, let's look at it again. So we have a point, -3, comma 3. This is this point. Can everyone see this? This point. That is -2, comma 3 on the graph. We want to reflect this across the x-axis. This is the x-axis. If we flip this, this goes all the way down here. What is this point here?
It's C.
Yeah, that's right. It'll be C, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're reflecting this point over the x-axis, like this, flipping it.
Nossa. Ué, você não me cachorro?
So you don't need to draw the graph every time you solve this problem. There is a clean way. So when it is reflected about the x-axis, the sign of the y-coordinate changes. So if we had h comma k, this becomes h comma -k when you reflect about the x-axis. So you had -2 comma 3. This becomes -2 comma -3. Just taking negative of k, negative of 3. Okay. Okay. Does everyone understand how this works? Then
Yes.
yes, okay. Let's move on to another problem. Yeah. Let me clarify one more thing about reflections. So you can have a reflection over the x-axis or over the y-axis. So this axis right here. this one, the vertical axis. Or you can have a reflection over the origin. This is a little bit more difficult, but you can have a reflection over the origin as well, just the center. But if you reflect over the y-axis, then you change the sign of the x-coordinate. Okay. Um, I think I can show you something really quickly. Mm, let's see. So I want to show you maybe one thing. Um, so reflecting over the y-axis kind of looks like this. So you're like flipping it over the axis like this, over the y-axis. So although this is a shape, the same applies to just the point that we had before. We're flipping it like this. You can think about it. You can turning it over. Okay. So here in our problem, we had flipping over this point over the y-axis, then only the sign of the x-coordinate changes. So it goes from h comma k to negative h comma k. If you flip over the origin, you're flipping over this point. So you're flipping it like this. So both the x and the y change their signs. So x comma y becomes negative x comma negative y. Okay. Yeah, I hope everyone understood this topic. Um, yeah. Yeah, that's why the answer for this question was C, for the previous one, when we were flipping over the x-axis. You can think about flipping it over. Okay. Let's solve this last question for today. I can solve this and end it here. One more question. Solve this inequality. 3 times x minus 5 is greater than 15 minus 4 times 8 minus x.
And so the other, so the answer is C. C.
So maybe do you think it's C? Let's look at yes, sir. And yeah, if you solve for C, did everyone else get the same answer?
C.
Yeah, great job. Um, the answer is C. Yeah, great job on this. This one is can be a little confusing, but let's solve through it step by step, okay, so that everyone can understand. We're given, let's expand this out first. Expand these two out first. This becomes 3x minus 5 minus 3 times 5 is greater than 15 and minus 4 times 8 times minus 4 times minus x. Let's simplify this. Yeah, let's simplify. We get 3x minus 15. 3 times 5 is 15 is greater than 15 minus 32 plus 4x because negative times negative is positive. Here.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's put all the x's on the left side and all the numbers on the right side. Yeah. So we subtract 4 on both sides. Subtract 4. Negative, let's see, 3x minus 4x on one side. And then we add 15 on the other side. Let's add 15. So it becomes 15 minus 32 plus 15. And what does this become? This becomes negative x is greater than negative 2. Yeah, so let's go through the steps again. So what we did first was expand out these two, expand, and then we put all the x's on the left side by subtracting 4x on both sides and adding 15 on both sides. That's why we got to negative x is greater than negative 2. But here is the final step. You need to divide -1 on both sides, right? But in an inequality, if you divide both sides by -1, the inequality sign changes direction. This is really important. So this becomes x is less than 2. So this last step might be a little confusing because we need always, when we divide by a negative number in an inequality, you flip the sign, right? You flip the sign because we divided -1 on both sides. Divide by -1. Oh, um, yeah, this is the last question. So I wanted to make sure that everyone understands why this one is right. Um, okay. Okay. If this one makes sense, yeah. Always remember that this is the most important part of this question. Divide both sides by -1, and then if we divide by a negative number, the inequality sign always changes direction. Okay. Um, yeah, if you're finished writing this one down, then let's move on to let's finish off with one. Let's go back to one of the questions. Um, yeah, I wanted to look at this, return back to this one before we finish. So, yeah, this one was finding the circumference, and I wanted everyone to understand what the circumference was and how we find that. Um, so did you understand this question, or do you have any questions about this question, about this one? Because this one might be something new that you didn't quite learn yet. Um, so I wanted to make sure. Yeah. Oh, are you good with this? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So because confront circumference is the length of a circle all the way around. And the formula for that is 2 pi r. Something that you need to just memorize. Um, and then usually in the question, pi is given to be 22/7. And r here is the radius. Radius is from the center point of the circle to a point on the circle. And the diameter is 2 times r. And that makes sense because you're taking the whole one side of the circle to another side by crossing the middle point. So I wanted to emphasize one more that circumference can be written as 2 pi r or pi d. If the radius was not given, if only the diameter was given, then the circumference would just be pi d. And yeah, I wanted you to understand that, radius, 2 times the radius is equal to the diameter. Okay. Um, so that is the last part for today. So does anyone have any questions for today about anything any questions?
Yeah, that's too.
Yeah. So no questions. Is everything okay? Yeah.
Everything is okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, JB. They said everything is okay. So I think we're gonna meet in the next class. That'll be next week, right?
Okay, great. Yeah, we will continue next week on mathematics as well. Mm.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, great job everyone today. Yeah, you guys did amazing. Yeah, you guys answered the questions really, really well. So, yeah, I think the students answered them really well. So, yeah. Yeah, I'll see everyone next week then. And
Okay.
all right. All right.
Sure.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Yeah. Bye everyone. I'll see everyone next week. Bye everyone. Yeah.